Hello, I'm Dr. Mike Smith, and I'm here interviewing today with Mark Mattei. I'm the action coach for St. Louis, Missouri, and we want to hear a little bit more about your business, Mark. Tell us about your business.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Named Mark Mattei, as you stated. Our business is MEM Media. We do video production and video marketing. So we focus on creating videos for businesses, anywhere from YouTube videos, social media reels, videos for your website, commercials for TV, etc. Anything that a business could use and that would benefit them in their marketing efforts. And then we put a heavy emphasis on the marketing side. So we don't just create really good content. We create content that ultimately is going to help companies make a return on their investment. And that's going to make them more money, help their company grow. So we look a lot behind the statistics. We do analysis to figure out what it is that your company needs and how video can best help them. Me and my wife, we started our company in 2020. Great time to start a business, right at
For sure.
the height of the pandemic. But started it, hit the ground running, and we've been able to double our growth every year for the last 3.5 years. So it's been really, really good, and we're really excited with where we're at.
Thank you for visiting us today, and we really appreciate your time and look forward to learning a lot more about M&M. We all have our stories. So if you go back to the beginning, back in 2020, when you and your wife started your company, what were the key decisions and actions that you took, and what would you change if you had to do it over again?
It's a great question. Key decisions and actions. I think the key decisions that we made were, you know, I might need a moment to think about this. I think the key decisions we made were the type of content and the type of audience that we wanted to
Right.
basically, how am I going to say that? Some of those key decisions that we made were the type of businesses and the type of audience that we wanted to work with. With video, there's so many directions you can go, and I have a background in video. I've been doing this since about 2015, and like you can go weddings, you can go work in Hollywood, you can work local. There's so many avenues. So we had to decide like what it is we wanted to target, and ultimately we thought, hey, let's target businesses, help them tell their stories, and get their names out there in that way. We think story is such a key part of what we do. Stories are ultimately what interact with the human emotion. So if you can link a business to that emotion in some way and make them feel something, then you're ultimately be able to sell to them. If you can convince at HVAC business, if you can convince their audience or show their audience, not convince, if you can show their audience, hey, this is another human, this is a real person, real people that you're working with. Oh, sorry, I got an Amber Alert. That you're working with, that ultimately they're going to be able to connect with that audience in a real and authentic way. And that's what we're trying to do for people.
Right. So I'm asking another question. In the E-Myth, whether you've read the book or not, the E-Myth is kind of the entrepreneurial's, storybook that's out there, written by Gerber. And one of the things I've talked about in the networking groups that we're in is that at some point you had an entrepreneurial seizure, right? And that entrepreneurial seizure was, me and my wife are going to start this new business. What created that entrepreneurial seizure for you to make you want to go out and strike out on your own?
Well, for me, it was kind of out of necessity. So in 2020, we got laid off from the
Okay.
job that we were working at,
Okay.
and we we were very blessed in the way that part of our severance was we were working for a remote company before remote companies were
Okay.
normalized, and
Perfect.
we got all the video equipment that from that company as part of our severance. They were like, hey,
Oh,
we
wow.
don't need this, like you guys keep it.
Wow.
And we had been talking about starting our own business for a while, and when that happened, it was like, okay, like, are we really going to do this? Like, we've talked about it. Now is the opportunity. Like, we have all this equipment, from the company we were working at. Like, this is the opportunity. So we're like, yeah, let's dive in, let's do it. And that was very scary at first. We didn't know how to do it. We hadn't really thought too much about how we were going to do it. We just like, hey, we're going to
Right.
do it, and we just like I said, hit the ground running. And in the beginning, we really didn't know what we were doing. And you know, figuring out things along the way. And I like getting back to that seizure moment. There was a moment probably in 2021 where things were just slow.
Okay.
as we were building the business. It's like, hey, like I could go out and I could find a job,
Right.
get a salary and be really comfortable, or we can really continue with this. And ultimately, like we are just like, no, we're gonna dig our heels in and we're gonna push forward. So that's what that moment kind of looked like for us. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. You went through the persistence and perseverance, and you're going to stick with it. And look at what you have today. So, as I've met you last October in one of the groups that we're in, I've seen you invite some of your employees that come in and talk. I've hired you and your wife to do some video for me as well, and your team. So your team has grown over a period of time. What is your team? How big is your team today?
So right now so it's me and my wife, and then we have two full-time employees, and then a number of interns who work with us as well.
Right.
And then as well, we work with a ton of different contractors on different projects.
Right. So one of the things that I've noticed about them is you seem to have really good employees, and I say seem because I've met them, and they're very awesome and dynamic. So what are the qualities that you look for in employees, and how do you find them in today's tough market?
Yeah, the things that we look for in employees are people who ultimately work hard, hardworking and diligent, and also take direction really well and take
Okay.
criticism really well. Doing video production, this is something that it's an art form, and there's creative feedback going on, and a lot of what we are teaching, can be objective, and
Right.
so ultimately, people who can take that objective feedback and kind of roll with it, and improve themselves, that's something that we really look for, because that's ultimately just going to make them a better creator, and they're going to put
Right.
out better videos for our clients, better content for our clients. Another thing that we really look for are people who are just easygoing, and easy to work with. The
Right.
communication is there, and they are just a team player, and care about the work they're doing, care about um, just making good stuff, and ultimately care about the client's needs at the end of the day. So
I think I would add one more because I've met you, I've spent time with you and your wife. I've spent a little bit of time with your employees. I would tell you one thing you missed was they are really creative because
yeah,
I am not a really creative guy. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. That's what I do in Action Coach is help people get down to the nitty gritty nuts and bolts. And some of the videos, not all, I mean, all the videos that you guys put out and you go to your website are just phenomenal. Like they're
thank you.
beyond, I think anybody, in our networking groups that you've done, they're beyond the expectations. So I think you got a really good eye for creative talent, and that's something you should really continue to work on.
Well, I
One
appreciate that,
thing,
Mike.
one of the things that we do when we hire employees, because right now you're a smaller company and you're probably hiring a lot of people that you know. In the future,
Yeah.
when you get to hiring people you may not know and you have to go through a lot of people, have you considered using like a DISC assessment or e-colors, predictive index, Myers-Briggs, any of
Mhm.
those assessments? And would that be something you might want to think about in the future? Because they're pretty good tools to kind of, when you start getting beyond people that you know within your sphere, everybody, we can all pay someone to help us interview really well,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden we've got to really see, one of the things they talked about when I was at a big company was we brought in a speaker and he goes, we hire employees, but unfortunately human beings show up, right? And
Yeah.
with the human beings are all these different things. So that's a great thing to think about. So you own your own business, you and your wife, you guys are doing a great job. You're successful. So there's this gleam of, you own your own business and now you're successful, Mark. So there's some misconceptions probably of your friends and family. Tell us what some of those misconceptions that they perceive about you and your success, and how do you address those with them?
Yeah, I think, some of the misconceptions are, I think one of them has to do with time. It's,
Mhm.
hey, like, people think, oh, you own your own business, you work your own hours,
Right.
which, it's true. But they'll be like, hey, like, can you do X, Y, and Z? Like, come help me out with this. Like, I know you own your own business. Like, you can go, you kind of have more time than the rest of it. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like, yeah, I get to make my own hours, but truthfully, I'm working more than I was, when I had, a full time job, because like, if I take something like a vacation, when you leave, like the work still continues. And all that time that you're missing. So it's like you cram before the vacation to get all the work done, and then you leave, and all this work's being missed out on. You get back and you just keep working more and more.
Yeah, I can hear you, but it froze for a minute. So you might want to repeat that last statement, and we'll edit it out. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying, I think part of it is like people will often misconceive, what success is, or what a successful business looks like.
Right,
There's the side of it where the business is successful, but you know in the first couple of years of growing a business, like you might not necessarily be paying yourself a lot of money because you're trying to grow the business.
right,
So there's the side of it, especially when we were starting out, where it's
right,
like, hey, like friends and family were like, hey, we want to go do all these activities, and we were a little bit more on a financial like crunch because we were
right.
budgeting, and
Good
like
startup. Yeah,
we don't want to spend a lot of money because we're trying to let the business keep that money. And so that was hard, and that was a struggle, especially in the beginning, and like it still can be, because there's the side, like you go through phases where it's like, hey, like we want to amp up the business at this time frame, and that's gonna cost more money on the business. You're trying to save that money, so you might give yourself a little bit of a pay cut so you can make that happen. But so that was another common run-in that we faced a lot, especially in the beginning.
excellent. So your business has grown, it's doubled every year for the last 3 years.
Hmm.
How do you attribute that growth?
Sorry, you broke up at the end there. How do you what that growth?
What do you attribute your growth to? You told me earlier that your business has doubled every year for the last 3 years. What do you attribute that growth to?
Yeah, I attribute that growth to a lot of, we have some dedicated employees who are really good, like really are, as you said, are creative, but they're also good at just, pushing through when the work gets hard, and, making sure that it's getting done. So I really attribute a lot to my team. They do a lot to help this business grow. But then there's the side of it where we we've we ourselves as business owners have put in a lot of hard work, and
Right,
been able to make good relationships with clients, and with not just clients, but like with in networking spheres like we're in, Mike,
right,
talking to people. And I'd say especially recently, that's where I'm attributing a lot of our growth, is just getting out there, talking to people, knowing the right people, and being a good person, being a kind person. And as you do that, people like you, and they want to work with you. And that's what I've done. I'm not necessarily an outgoing person, but as
mhm,
I've put myself out there and tried to find out how I can help other people outside of my business,
right.
I've been able to see how that's been able to help our business grow.
Yeah. You get a
Sorry,
secret
that's kind of
weapon.
a roundabout answer.
No, you're good. You get a secret weapon to your wife. She's very outgoing. She likes to,
She's extremely outgoing, and she's great. She's a great people person, and
yeah,
knows how to talk to people, and just people just love her, and she loves them. So it's great. Emma is fantastic.
perfect. So one of the things you said earlier, and I know we're trying to get past the pandemic, but it's still fresh in our minds, right? So you both lost your jobs during the pandemic. As part of your package, you got some equipment which helped you start that out.
Hmm.
But tell me what changes you've adapted to since the pandemic, and I want to pretext that. I do think the pandemic, in Dr. Mike's point of view, the pandemic made us more open to virtual meetings like we're having right now.
Yeah.
It made us more open to getting things from Amazon delivered to our door. So those things have happened now. Tell me how you've seen that from your startup to today. What things you've adopted since the global pandemic that may be some successes.
Yeah, that's a great question. The pandemic changed a lot. So, as I said, we took on a lot of this gear when we started the business, and that was a huge blessing. It helped us kind of get our our groundwork going, at least as far as equipment goes. Uh, and like that's not to say like, oh, like we didn't work for everything we got. Like we worked for
Right,
everything we got. Like I at
right,
the company that I was working at, like we put in a lot of work, and honestly, like I see it as, I was blessed, but I kind of also in a way deserved that equipment. I worked
right.
hard for that company. I did a lot for them, and and they paid me in that. They were like, hey,
Yep,
you did a great job while you were here. We just don't need this anymore.
yep,
But so since then, the pandemic changed a lot, especially for us as a video production company. Like we need to be in front of clients ultimately to video them. So it's like, how do we work around that? Like we couldn't necessarily go on set to shoot with people, or at least like it was less comfortable for people to be able to do that.
Right.
So one of our workarounds in the beginning is we did a lot of remote work, which you might be like, how do you do that in the video space? We were doing it in the form of my wife, Emma. She's a spokesperson.
Okay.
So she represents a lot of different brands. So we'd find these companies online. They're like, hey, like we need someone to shoot these videos for us, read a script, do a presentation of our product. So starting out, like we were just running things out of our basement, and we had a lighting setup and a camera setup all in our basement. And Emma was there on a green screen or on a white screen, filming in behalf of these companies, basically being a
Right.
representative for them. So in the beginning, that was a lot of what we did, and that carried us through the first couple of years of the pandemic. And we were able to do that with this pretty basic setup that we inherited. And since then, we've been able to grow into a fully fledged like video production company. I think a lot of people when they start a business, you kind of have imposter syndrome a little bit. You're like, are we really doing this? How are we doing this? Like this doesn't feel real. I feel like I'm faking it. And
Yeah.
it can feel like that for the first, you know, 6 months to like year and a half. But
Right.
at some point you surpass that. And, I don't really know when it was, but at some point I'm like, oh, like we're professionals. Like we know what we're doing. We make really, really good stuff. Like we're not just faking it till we make it anymore. So the pandemic
Right.
kind of it's been such a weird transition. But sometime during that time period, we were able to go from that point of like, hey, we're just kind of pretending to do this to like, hey, we're
Okay.
really doing this and we're making really, really cool stuff.
Great. That's great. I think, when we have change in our life, if you don't have to work for it and it doesn't hurt a little bit, you didn't really change. You stayed in your
Yeah,
comfort zone. So the uncertainty and all those things, you can look back, and be wise from 3 years later, and look back in the rearview mirror and see where you're at today in 2024. So those are great stories, and you're right. I've seen your wife in some of those videos that you've shared with me, and she's a great
yeah,
spokesman to
yeah.
go out and benefit those. So
She's
the
great at it, and we started with that, and like it's not our main shtick anymore. But like she still does a lot of it, and she really enjoys it. So and she's really, really good at it. So
It gives her some change and diversity of
hmm
things to do today as well. So I
exactly.
got to ask the big question because a lot of business people like yourselves just cannot work with their spouse. So I'm really interested to know, how do you manage your personal and business life? How do you balance those two together? And the second part of that would be like, how do you stay married together, working together every day?
Yeah, that is something we are we're still figuring out every day. No, I'm joking. Like we love it. It is hard. Like sometimes those lines get blurred.
Yeah.
Because I'd say one of the biggest difficulties is, like sometimes jobs need to get done, and
Right.
like you need to have a little bit, like you would have a little bit of a firmer hand with your employees. It's like, hey, like we need X, Y, and Z done. And it's like, how do you do that with your spouse without, starting an argument or feeling like, hey, like one person's over the other, because like we're equal
Right.
partners in this. But at the same
Yes.
time, like there needs to be structure and there needs to be organization within the business. So that's the thing that we balanced out. And ultimately, the way that we do it in our company is I kind of run more the administrative side of the business now, and Emma takes more of the creative lead when
Okay.
it comes to the videos and the marketing material that we create. And there's still some butting heads sometimes, but we're really good at working things out and hearing each other. I think is the most important thing, and finding out the best ways to communicate with each other. And it said so much that it almost seems redundant, but communication truly is the key, and having that good communication is what makes it successful.
Perfect. Well, I was at a conference this weekend of several coaches down in Houston, Texas, and there's a couple there that does coaching like I do.
Hmm.
And I asked when I talk to him, I kind of know disc profiles and temperaments pretty well. And I said, God bless you guys for working together this long and staying together. I go, how do you do it? And he goes, I just stay in my lane. He goes, she's got her lanes, I got my lanes.
Hmm.
Sometimes we swerve off the lane a little bit. and then we'll figure it out. But we just stay in our own lanes, and it seems to work out pretty well. And I go, wow, you should write a book on that because I'm not sure everybody can do that.
Yeah, it's a good answer, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
I think staying in your own lane and figuring, because for a long time we didn't have those roles um like defined, and that's when
right,
it was like there was more of that butting heads. But like
right,
once we defined those roles and like, hey, here's what you're doing, here's what I'm doing, it makes it so much easier to stay in your lane because those lanes aren't crossed. You know, they're clearly
right,
defined.
right. Very good. Well, we're in networking groups, but I want to ask for the audience to hear this, and the goal is, to know, like, and trust. And so, what is who's your ideal customer? And then, secondly, who's your ideal referral partner?
Yeah, ideal customer is any business that is looking to grow. I would say any business that has typically businesses that can afford marketing services like ours, are businesses that have more than like five to like well, anyone that has more than like five employees and is making more than, $500,000 a year as a business is typically a really good customer for us because they have enough money to spend a good amount on their marketing where they can get a good return on their investment with video production and video marketing services. So, that could be, any home service company, HVAC, roofing, electric, etc. Those are all good options. But we also do work with like some law groups, um, hospitals, medical professionals, etc. Are all good referral partners for us, or good customers, I should say, for us. And then the second part of your question was referral partners. Great referral partners are other people in our industry, other people that are doing video are actually
No,
fantastic referral partners. I don't see people as competition. I see them as people that we have an opportunity to work together
right,
with, because
right,
there's so much work and so much work to go around that sometimes I'll get booked for a job. So a lot of our jobs are date and gig based. And it's like, hey, you need to be available on a certain date. And it's like, I might be booked for that day, but I still want to be able to help this person out. So I'll call one of my referral partners who's another video company to be able to go help them out because I just simply can't do it. Or maybe I need an extra cameraman for a day and I don't have the staff to do that. I can reach into my network and pull someone from there. So I'm always looking to connect with other video professionals.
right, great. And I'm not looking for any pricing or anything else, but one of the things I learned in our group was you think about video, you think this, and part of being business to business and doing these things are kind of cutting edge, like coaching and digital
Yeah.
marketing. The average, entrepreneur that's out there, a business owner thinks, wow, it's probably a big amount of money up front, et cetera. And one of the things you offered up in our group was, hey, we come in and we do X for you, and then we actually have a monthly fee that you pay, so you're not paying
Hmm.
that front cost. Anything else like that you want to share before we wrap up here?
Yeah,
On how
definitely.
someone can get past that? Is there something where they can do a 15-minute call with you, or how does that work? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Great way to get a hold of me is check out our website, www.memfilms.com. There you can go check out a lot of our work, see what it is we've done. And then you can also shoot me an email, mark@memfilms.com, with any questions that you may have regarding our services or our company. But as far as, kind of that price structure goes, we really like to work with the company on an individual basis.
Right,
So you know, marketing can be as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. So I
right,
often get people who come to me and say, hey, how much is this going to be? And,
mhm,
a video can be anywhere between 500 to $50,000 or more. It just depends on what's in your budget, what can you afford, and we like
right,
to work within our clients' budgets and say, hey, here's how we can help you, and here's how we can help you. And you know that really is a varying range. So most of our jobs really are custom because it's like, hey, like you might need actors for a job, you might need props, you might need a certain location that we
right,
might need to go to, you need to rent a car that we need to connect a rig to. So it's like, most jobs aren't that complicated, but you know most of them are a lot more simple, but it really can range. And typically, the more you can spend, the better your video can look and the more you can get out of it. But that's not necessarily necessary for every single company. Like, there's no reason that someone like you would need a bunch of drones and helicopters or something
right,
to advertise your company. But a car
mhm,
dealership or something like that, like, hey, something like that might be more depending on the type of commercial they're trying to make, might be more feasible. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Mark, for your time, energy, and effort today. I greatly appreciate that. And it was a great interview, and I look forward to getting this out on the internet through different social media channels.
Yeah, I
Thanks again.
appreciate it. Yeah, Mike, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. Uh, as it's just been really good to be able to chat and talk and just getting to know you. Like, you always give great advice and have great input on things. So, anyone looking for a coach or just for some guidance, Mike's an awesome resource, awesome way to go. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Wasn't expected, but I thank you for that compliment.